Hi everybody, it's Rory Townsend here again. Just thought I'd introduce my workflow and what I use in SketchUp that helps me get around. Some of the tools I didn't use up until quite late in my SketchUp career, and I think it might add quite a bit of value to you if you're busy editing. So let me just start off and share probably 5 tools, and I'm not going to go into detail about each of the tools. I'll probably choose just one or two features of each of the tools, and it's pretty easy to remember because they're the Fredo 6 tools and they all are free. The reason I choose to use free tools and not paid for tools, I have ones that are paid for tools, but the reason I recommend free tools is because then it's easier to share with people and nobody needs investments along the way. So what I'm going to do is cover 5 tools and 5 features or one feature from each of those tools that I use, and might help you with your modeling, and then just give you one or two tips on when I design what I keep in mind, and then also share all my shortcut keys, and it's basically like 12 keys that I've allocated to the different functionalities. And you've just got to excuse the cars in the background. I'm on the 6th floor of a building, but the cars are quite loud still here. So I hope you forgive that. Okay, let's get going. First one is the Fredo resize tool. So it's this one here. I'll pull it out. It's called FredoScale. It's got phenomenal features, and I use the rescale. So I'm going to just do a little box here. Make that into a group. It has brilliant features, and like I said, I'm not going to get into every one of them. The ones that I use often is the actual scaling part, which is a substitute for the scaling tool that comes with SketchUp. It's got lots more sort of different features, and the handles move slightly different. But what I've done basically is almost replace the resize tool with this FredoScale, and I've allocated the FredoScale to a shortcut key, and yeah, pretty much that's what I do. So the one part that I'm going to share with you, which I think might be new to some people, but it's a brilliant tool to use, is the radial bending one, which is this bottom right one. So I'm going to just pop this back in here to get a bit of a better indication of, let me just resize these things here, a better indication of how it all works. I'm going to make a tall sort of pole area. Okay, so often if you're wanting to create, let's say we're wanting to create a duct, a air conditioner duct, and you can use it for pretty much anything, but if you want to create an air conditioner duct, we can use different tools. There's another tool called Shape and Bend, but I prefer using this Fredo scale tool with the radial bending because it gives me a bit more flexibility. So okay, so we're going to create a duct that goes from the ground. It's going to go to the right and up to the left. Basically, you select your item and then you click on your FredoScale tool. It then requests, the instructions are quite plain. When you look at it, you'll see the instructions come up, little pop-up dialog. But basically what it's saying is, where's your reference point, your reference plane? So this green plane is if it shifts around to the other side. This one is on this axis here. So I've got it into the corner here. Make sure that it's selected into the corner. I then do a left mouse button click, and then it's going to ask me to reference the actual object direction that the object is in. So this object is going towards the top, and if I hover over the edge when I get to midpoint, it will inform me that I'm at the midpoint. So I'm going to say go up to a midpoint area and then want this thing to bend. Let's go from there. There it says midpoint. I then left mouse button click, and then it asks me to pick an inference point. So I move basically the mouse in the direction that I want the bend to happen. So you can move far, and then it will create a a big arc, or closer it will create a smaller arc. I'm going to just escape there. I'm going to draw it slightly closer, about there. I'm now going to left mouse button click, and then when I move in that direction, can you see what happens? It creates a rotation in that area, and I can take it, bending it around like this. Now I'm going to take it and let go of the mouse and just type in at the bottom right corner. You'll see the minus 85 degrees, so that's the direction. So I'm going to choose minus 90, type that in, press enter, and that's pretty much, now I've got a pipe that goes kind of bent over in that direction. Okay, so if I want this thing now to have a sharp turn upwards, same thing happens. I make selection, go to the radial bend tool, and then I select from about this area. I click left mouse. I then go on the reference direction. You can see those dialogues sticking at the end of the actual, and you can make different sort of references, but in this case here I want to go along this reference of this area. And now I'm going to click much shorter because I want the arc to be a little bit more acute. So I could go out here and start it, and it would do a general bend from this radial point. But I'm going to just go a little bit out, and I'm going to click and now give the direction I want to bend up. And once I bend, now I can move my mouse and it will start doing the bend. So when I put it up here, if I look down at the bottom, I want to get it at 90 degrees. I type in 90, and there we go. Okay, so that's actually quite brilliant. And then I'm going to make this pipe go further to the right. Select the item, select it again, same thing, click on the area, just go a little up, click again, move in the direction, click, and then pull it down. Basically I let go of my mouse button, and when I move the mouse it's going to still navigate, and I'm looking at the direction. It's saying minus 88, so I'll choose minus 90, press enter, and there we go. And pretty much that's how you get to manipulate it. And I mean, you can use it in different directions, you know, creating bent walls and whatever it is. I'm just showing you the potential of that tool. So that's just one feature, the radial bending. That's one feature of the FredoScale tools. All of these tools here are part of the system. Now, the one thing that I used to always get a bit annoyed at is when there's a little joint part here. And what you do is here you can basically click into the model and choose the eraser, this eraser up here, and then keep the shift button down, and it will just remove the reference points. There we go. In some cases you don't need to keep the shift button down and it will remove it, but in other cases, if you delete it, like I showed you there now, I've just run the erase over it, it cuts out that section. I'm going to go Control Z. So to just delete the edge there without you know, making a hole in the thing, you keep the shift down and go over it, and it will just remove these edges, the visibility of these edges. Okay, so yeah, so that is the bend tool. And the nice thing is you can work while it's in a group. So while it's in the group, you apply the actual radial blend to it. Okay, that's the first tool. I hope you have a lot of fun with that, and that helps you in a bit of your modeling. I'm going to delete that now, and the next one I want to show you is the joint push and pull. This is also a Fredo. This does exactly, and I've shared this in a previous video, does what the normal push and pull does, but it's basically a system on steroids. Each of these, from the joint push and pull to the round push and pull, vector push and pull, and all these ones have different functionalities. The reason I want to indicate this here is to show you actually the power of thickening up a thin surface. So let me show you what I mean by that. And bottom line is, you know, spend some time and get to know all the features of each of these tools. But I'm showing you the ones that I find that I use quite often. I'm going to use also a Bezier tool, which is a BZ. You'll see it here if I bring it out, BZ tools. I think this one is also by Fredo, I'm not too sure. but this is all Beziers, and I'm going to pop it up here. And I'm going to just use this. I'm not going to explain anything here except to the fact that or maybe I will explain this one also. But for now, I just want to do a specific shape here. So I'm going to click there, just move that out there. Let's just do this from the top. Okay. So all I wanted to do there is create a off loop, or maybe I should do a more simple one, not to complicate matters. Just use this tool. I'll go there, around this way, and then I can do an extrusion here and just erase this section, this one, erase all of this. Okay, that's what I want. I want basically a half curve. Now, as you know, it's impossible to use your normal push-pull tool. If I click there and I want to push or pull on this curved surface, it doesn't work in SketchUp. And this is where the power of the Fredo joint push-pull tool works. I'm going to choose the first one, the J, which is a push-pull to thicken the surface. Because often if you work like this, and specifically if you're going to take this model into like Unreal Gaming Engine, and you want to create a half curved wall like this, if you take it into Unreal and you view it from this side, you're going to see nothing. If you view it from this side, you'll see an arc like this. And the reason is this grayish side is the inside of the actual surface, and the inside face is not visible in Unreal Engine if you're going to move it in that direction. Only the outside here. So you've got to actually make this a thickened surface. Now, most of the time you could actually start by, creating a circle, doing a little offset, and then cutting it in half and cleaning up and then extruding. But pretty much once you do that, you're settled with the thickness. So let me just show you. For example, you'll do this. Okay, and we'll do it's going to do an offset, and then we take a pin maybe moving through the middle there. This usually is the way it gets done. We raise this section. We raise this section and we go push-pull and we pull it up there. Okay, that's usually how we do it. But now the challenge we have is, if I want to make this wall a bit thinner or thicker, I actually can't do it because I can't alter it. The only way we can get to thicker thin is to use the actual Fredo push-pull tools. We can adjust it, but in this case I want to show you how you can start off with the thin area and thicken it accordingly. So say you've made a half moon like this, not a half moon but a semicircle, and you want to thicken it. The tool you use is the one J. Yeah, it's called joint push-pull tool. So when you click it, it's got a whole lot of features here which I'm not going to go too much into, except just explain the ones that are quite relevant. This face selection, this is a selection of a face. This is a selection of a surface. So this entire surface, if I click here, it's the entire surface that I'm selecting. This one here is all connected faces. So that applies to the fact that if it was a box and I selected one side, all the connected surfaces will be affected also. And then here, all adjacent. So when you hover over, you can see what it wants to do. So in this case here, I want to go and click the surface, which is this inner surface. And then the other thing that's of relevance is, if I hover over these here, this one says push-pull, erase original surface. So basically I can pull this surface out and this original surface will be gone and you'll only have the inside surface. But what happens there, you'll show you now. You'll do this. Maybe I've got a setting that's different. I was trying to demonstrate something and the one next to it was checked. I'm going to just check this one that I was trying to explain, erase original, and if I pull it, can you see what happens? It basically removes the original surface and moves all the others in the direction. However, where I use this one quite a bit is the finishing thing must be thickened. Okay, so that's what I use this for most of the time. So we go and we select the joint push pull tool. I select the surface and then make sure that the finish is thickened. Keep the original surface, and I just want to thicken the surface. So I basically go and I pull, and I don't worry too much about how far I pull it, and then I'll let go, and then I can type in the actual thickness. Now at this point, maybe I'm going to just give you a tip of how I work. I work in meters, but when I do thickening, I don't type it in meters because the system can accept feet, inches, meters, centimeters, all in the same system by you typing it that way. So I would go sampling this out. I want this to be, say, 5 centimeters. I will just, as I pull, I let go of the mouse. I press 5 here at the bottom. You can see the offset 5. And then I type cm for centimeters. If it was millimeters, I'll type mm. Because mine is defaulting to meters, if I just put in 5, it will be 5 meters. However, I can type in 5 feet, 3 centimeters, 20 millimeters. So I can type in and override it while I'm doing the edit. So if I do 5 centimeters, press enter, it's going to do a 5 centimeters. And can you see it? It automatically readjusted to my standard template that I'm using. It puts it back into meters. But I could also put 1,500 millimeters, and that will be 15 centimeters or 1.5 meters. If I put in 20 centimeters, it will go to that. So in this case, I'm going 5 centimeters. So don't feel that you've got to type the 0.00 meters or 0.0 feet if you're working in feet. Just type the one you're familiar with and the size you want, and you've got to then indicate whether it's centimeters, meters, or feet afterwards, and it will accept it that way. So I'm going to go into 3 centimeters. So let me see, 3 centimeters. There we go. So what I've done now, basically, and then I take it off there. I've created now a 3 centimeter thick panel like this. And that's the power of using the extrude tool. Now the other tools are a lot of things that they do, but I think I'm doing this session just to inspire you to actually get to use these tools and show you which ones I use quite regularly and how they help me. So yeah, if I decide, okay, I want to thicken this wall now, I don't sit with this dilemma that I have here before. I can actually go in there, do the same thing, push-pull tool. I can pull it out and I can say 25 centimeters, and there I have it there. Okay, the only difference here is that now I'm sitting with an extra extrusion, so there's 2 areas. So why did that happen? I'm going to go Control Z. Let me show you. When I clicked onto the surface that I want to extrude and I click onto the J, if I hover over the area, you can see the push-pull tool shows me there's the push-pull little icon, but there's a plus sign. So the reason why it extruded just now and left the original wall was because I chose this finish thickening, which meant that this push-pull tool automatically will be a push-pull with an add section, if I can say that. In normal terms, people who use the normal push-pull tool will be when you engage push-pull and you press the control button, then it will actually extrude and add in another face. So by default, it does that. If I want to now push-pull this area, but I don't want it to create a new interface, I have to click the control button and just watch what happens. The plus sign will disappear. I click control, the plus sign disappears. So now when I drag, and I'm going to say 25 centimeters, you're going to see here on top the entire wall now is 1 unit. Okay, so let me just go right back. I'm going to go out of that. So this is the explanation. We've got the thin wall. I go to joint push-pull tool. Now at the moment when I click this, because I'm working on the same model, it remembers that I switched off the I disabled it by pressing control key. But interesting, you'll notice that here by finish, it defaults to this first setting, which if I pull now, I'm going to pull the face and then leave the back face empty. So if I click on the thicken here, it automatically will add the plus sign. Or I could just hover here and press control key, and you see what happens here. It shifts over to thicken immediately. If I press control again, it shifts back over there. So basically I can manually click between the two, or click with the control key and enable the plus and take it away. So without any additional plus on there, if I pull this now, you can see that's what it does. It doesn't leave the original face. If I press the control key, it's basically switching it over to the second one, and it will create the thickening. And I can just type 25 centimeters. So that's how it works there. If I want to increase the thickness, if I wanted to make, for example, another extrusion here and leave this actual edge here, then I could basically go and choose the push-pull tool and then make it so that it will thicken it, and I can pull it out again, and when I let go, it leaves that there now because I've made a brand new extrusion. That's if I wanted that. I'm going to control Z, but if I don't want it, I basically can click back there, or I can press control, takes the plus away, and then it will just do extrusion and add it as one full extrusion. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense over there. And then when you're done with most of these Fredo tools, it gives you a little green button. You can press enter, or you just click off the model, and that should be completed there. Okay, let me go to the next one, the BZ toolbar. I'm going to just delete this and delete that. The BZ toolbar, it's got stacks of different features here, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But what is quite nice is that if you move into, let's say we go into a side view, and we want to create a structure, a spline structure, I can use this uniform B-spline, or you can use any one of them that you decide to want to use. Or maybe let me just use the first one here, the classic Bezier tool. So I'm going to go click there. I click one, and then I click where I want to end. So say I want to end this on top here. I'll click there, and then I move down, and I'm not pressing any mouse button. I'm just hovering. I'm going to take it down here. I pull it out wide, click again, take it up, move the cursor, click again, maybe move it up here. And I think, okay, I'm kind of done. I double click, and it will do this here. What is important when I double click and finish this area, the green button is there to say I'm done and I'm going to exit. But before I click that, if I look down at the bottom here, it says it's made up of 20 segments. I can now increase the segments, and maybe I'm going to say 50s. Look at the curve, how it starts to smoothen off. Can you see that? It has a little, if I go Control Z, can see the curve here at the bottom is quite rough. If I go to 50s, which is 50 segments, it smooths nicely over here. Then I click off it, and that's pretty much where it is. But if I think to myself, okay, I want to basically edit something on here, I can go back to the tools. Towards the right here, there's a little separator here, and on this side, if you hover here, it says edit. So because this is selected, if I deselect it there, I have to basically select it again for the edit to work on it. I've selected this area, I click on edit. We have all those edit features back again. And what is quite nice is if I hover over the reference plane here that's referencing the curves, I can double click on the line. It will add another edit point, a control point. So if I double click here, it's now putting a control point there, and this is automatically pulled back because of that. And if I go and grab that point, I can start moving and editing there. If I wanted another one here, I can double click here and then move this. It takes a little bit of while to sort of get a nice feel of it, but if you on one of these crosshairs, if you grab onto them and pull, you can shape the object. If you move in between them, you're moving the entire line. If you double click, it creates a new crosshair reference point. When I click off it, I'm going to go out of the view now, and you'll see that's what I've created over there. So that's how you can use one of the tools. It's quite great in you able to, create these Bezier curves, but also edit them and smooth them. And it just takes a bit of getting used to these different tools, and you'll get to use one or two of them, probably more than others. But this is when you're creating, things that you want to create lofts and that sort of thing with. While I'm at this now, I'm going to move from this. Once again, I just want to remind you, in this tool here, there's all of these other features over here that you can spend some time getting into, but I'm giving you a taste of what it is and why I use it. So if I have this here now, I'm going to go on to the next tool that I use also. This is if you want to create like tents, like a stretch tent, or even let's use this one as a seat. So I'm going to create a loft, which is going to go between two of these similar sections. So I've selected that one, press M to move, and then if I want to create a duplicate, we do the same thing I showed earlier on, press Control, and you'll see a plus sign come next to the move tool. Then because I have this item selected and we in move mode and plus, which is to create a copy of it, I'll then left mouse button and then drag it along the axis. So I'm going to just drag it a little bit this way, maybe just about a meter. The reason I know it's a meter, it's showing here at the bottom, or I could just type it in. So now I'm going to take these two and then select both of them and then show you the actual next tool, which is the fourth tool, which is also a Fredo tool, and it's called Loft Curve, which is this one over here, or not Loft Curve, but Curviloft. It's got some brilliant features in each one of these three areas, but I'm going to just show you the first one. And let me drag it back in there. I'm going to now, I've selected these two. I click on that Curviloft, and you'll see what happens. It now creates a loft which joins these two. And you can see the potential here, because now you can create different Beziers. And maybe I'll just show another example, but this is what it does. It takes a spline, which is a single line, and then joins it to another single line. And I mean, here you can do all the settings. You're creating more segments, etc. When you're happy with it, it shows the tick mark when you're on there. When you're over it, hovering over it, you can select edges and move and edit edges along the way if you want to. But for now, I'm going to just complete it, click off here, and there I've got it. Isn't that great? And here we come with the same thing now. We realize that we're wanting to make this a bit thick, because remember, if we take this, for example, into Unreal, if we look from the side, we'll see nothing. If we look from the side, we'll see this area and we'll see nothing here, because that's the reversed face. So we want to add a bit of thickness. How do we add thickness? We come and we select the face again, and we go to the joint push-pull. Let's click there and make sure we're on the thickening one. Okay, either click there, or remember what we said, we could press, if I press Control, it will switch over to there, Control, and it switches over there. So we're over here now, we're on the surface, and what we do is we pull it, and we can say 5 centimeters. Press Enter, and there it's created a bit of thickness. If I click the Enter, there we go. You see now we've created a nice thick thickness onto that single individual thing. So that's what Curviloft does. It creates a loft between two splines, two lines, and then we can thicken it with the push-pull, the joint push-pull tool. Okay. If I wanted to show something else. What was it? Oh yes, like for some people who want to create a bottle. And yeah, I'll explain one of the important things that I've learned also to keep quality good. So I'm going to create the circle. What I routinely do now, if I'm creating a circle, because I want, if I create a circle, I click and I drag and I click again. If you look closely, can you see that these edges, because remember, a circle is just made up of sides. So this one here now, if I click on it and I right click and I say entity, it's made up of 24 segments. Now I can do this and then change the number of segments, but it is a bit of a schlep to do that. So let me remove it. The easier and quicker way to do it is when you have the circle, I routinely would go click on the spot, pull it out and let go of the mouse button. And now the first thing I'm going to type is the segments. Now if I want this thing to be nice and smooth, I could go 50 or 100. I'll choose 100. I go 100. And if you look at the bottom there, it's saying 100 radius. But I don't want it to be 100 radius because that's going to be 100 meters. That's massive. I'm at the 100 I'm typing. I want to specify what it's relevant to. And when I put a S after it, it stands for segments. So I'm saying that the circle must have 100 segments. So there's more little segments and it will be more smooth. Just watch how the edges smoothen up. Press enter. Can you see how beautifully it smoothens up? Now while I'm still in this mode, if I draw another circle and I let go, it automatically will inherit that 100 segments on that circle. Okay. However, if I click off this and I come back to the circle and I draw another circle, when I let go, it switches back to the default 24. And I'm quite sure that you could set up the default to be, for example, 100 in the preferences. I must actually go check that up. I haven't really done that bit of homework. I think it would be sensible for me because I would like to have all of the circles I draw to be relatively high quality. Okay, but coming back to it, what I do is, my first thing I'll do with a circle, I draw, I let go of the left mouse button, I would type the, in my case, 100S for segments, I press enter. So once I'm happy with that, now the next one I want to type in is actually the radius. So the S is defined that it is the segments, which is now smoothened nicely. Now if I want the radius to be, say 12 centimeters, then I just keep typing 12 centimeters. I leave the mouse alone, don't click anywhere else. When I say 12 centimeters, press enter. It gives me a 12 centimeter radius there. Okay, so remember there's two indications. I'll do it again. I must click off here, just so we can get back to the original 24 segments. So the first one is I drag and I'll go, okay, let's say 50S for segments, smooths it nicely, and then I say 10, or let me say 20 centimeters, enter. What was that? 120, maybe make it 20, not 120. Whoops, 20 centimeters. Okay, that was 120 centimeters and then 20 meters. That's why it went so big. Okay, but that's the idea. First one, type it in, put a S afterwards for segments, gets nice smooth curve, and then you do the next. Okay, so we've got the circle now, and what I was busy wanting to demonstrate is the ability of the loft. Now, the second one on Curviloft can join different objects, but I'm not going to get into that now. I'm going to stick to the first one just to show you how else you could utilize this. So if I had this, I could take it and get it into a, let's go into a nice side view. I'm going to remove this object. So there's our object over there. And I'm going to move now. I press M for move and the control sign to create a duplicate, and I'll move it up and keep it along the axis, let go. And then I can press control again and create another copy to where I want to go. And I'm going to just do the same, press control, left mouse button, move it to a point, and then I'm going to just create copies of that. How do I create copies? When I let go of it, I'm going to just press multiply, you see in the bottom area, and say by 3. So I've moved it now to that space, and it's going to create 3 of these lines above the one that I've just duplicated. So I say times 3, and there we have 3 lines. Okay, so that's just a quick way of doing that. The other way of doing it is if I had to select this line and I go move tool, press control, I move it up over to the final area, and then I say divide by 3. So it's going to put basically lines in between the one that's originally and the end one. So divide by 3, press enter, and then it puts those lines in. Okay, so it says divide, and it's going to add 3 lines. Okay, so why am I doing all of this? This is just to show you the usage of these Fredo tools and the loft also. If you wanted to create a cup, you could go and, for example, like take this one. Let's just size this one a little bit bigger, and I'll show you the size tools we're done here, but I just want to show this for example's sake. And we take the 2 top ones and we size them a little bit bigger. Okay, so what we are doing now is we're creating a loft of objects that's going from the bottom. And in this case, when I create this loft, I'm going to take the middle out. I just want the splines. Because remember, Curviloft, these tools work with splines. So now I've got these objects. I don't select anything, and I select the Curviloft. It's going to pull up here, and I need to click on the edges. So when I click here, it will tell me this is the first one. And the reason why I click on them individually is because I want to tell it that from here it must go to the second one, to the third one, so forth. Sometimes if you select them all together and you click on the Curviloft, then it might position the third one before the second and so forth. Because you might have edited the third one and then moved it down, and the fourth one moved it above. So best way is just to not have anything selected. Click the Curviloft and then select them individually. It says 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now what I'm anticipating to see happen is that there's a loft that forms between them all when I click through on them. Okay, can you see there? Okay, all my shapes are a bit awkward, but that's exactly where we've created now a loft between all of these. Can you see that? That's if we wanted to create it. And here the same principle applies. If we wanted to now go and thicken this, but before we thicken it, I would like to remove these lines. And remember what I said, if I take this line and I erased it, I could get away with it, and in some cases it will cut a hole in the object. In this case here, it's actually not done that, so I'm fortunate with it. I didn't have to keep my shift button down. But now we have this object and it's paper thin. Again, this will be transparent if we open it up in Unreal, and this will be visible. So I want to have a bit of thickness. So again, what we do is we select the surface and we go to the joint push and pull, and can you see it's got the plus there, so we will keep the original surface and create a second one. So we pull it in, and I'm going to say this is 2 centimeters, enter. Make it 1 centimeter, enter. If I'm happy with that kind of thickness, I click the button outside, and it's doing a bit of mathematics to calculate it, and that's where I'm pretty done. Okay, so that's how you create a thing using the lofts, by using actual splines, circular splines that you can extrude. Okay. However, if I wanted to do something like this, I could actually use the second tool, probably a little bit easier. Okay, the other 2 tools have a lot of brilliance in them, but you can spend some time researching that. Maybe in future I'll do specific sessions on each one of these, but the main purpose of this exercise is basically to inspire you to get involved with different of these tools. Okay, so we've covered the Curviloft tools, or that as an option. We've gone through push-pull, and we've used that quite a bit. We've done the curves, I keep forgetting the name of this. It is the Bezier toolbar. And yeah, we've done the FredoScale tool with specific reference to the radial bending. And then the last thing that I just want to cover is the kind of shortcuts that I use that I find is helpful. Now, you might have a lot of shortcuts that you use and you're familiar with, so I don't intend to discourage you from using it. If you're using a shortcut and you're used to it, stick to it. Don't change just because I'm saying so. But I'm sharing the ones I've got used to and I find comfortable to use. and they're based around the tools that I was showing you now. So again, just to reiterate, is the circle. If we go circle, draw, click, go 100, S for segments, smooth it, and then we can go 25 centimeters, that is for the radius, and then pretty much we've got what we need. So the shortcut keys that I use here now is R. R stands for the actual rotate. So rotate, which is this normal rotate tool over here, which will do a rotate from an angle. You move along the axis and then you spin it around. So the whole idea is wherever you're selecting, in whichever plane you select, if you select there, you click, and along that plane you choose the axis from which you're going to reference, and you click again, and then it will rotate from there. And this is very useful for things like doors. You know, if you want to, in a model, you click here on the door and you click on section and you can open and close and rotate doors, kind of thing. It's very thick door, this, so but that's the way the rotate tool used. Now, in addition to that, I have on the keyboard, I have R. I set up R, and for those who don't know, you go to Preferences, Window Preferences, and you go to Shortcuts here, and basically if I wanted to do Field of View, I'm going to just use the same thing, V. If I wanted to use Field of View, I'll select it. In the Add Shortcut, I'll select the shortcut. In this case, I'm going to just reuse the V again. I'll click the plus sign, and it assigns it to it. If there is another thing, if I'm here on, say, Image Igloo, and I put in V, and I say Assign, it's going to warn me, and I can overwrite it, or I could then realize no, and I want to change it back to what it should be. So it will warn you if something else is actually using it. Okay, you allocate your shortcut keys. For the ones that you're not too sure, for example, Fredo, you're not sure where to find it, under which menu, you can just type in Fredo, and then it will pull up all the ones here, and you can check which ones you want to allocate. Okay. So I put the shortcut key R for rotate, and then next to it, the T for transform. I remember it that way. The T is to actually do the Fredo radial bending. So if I'm here now and I go, so I'm going to size this thing up first. Let me just do this. Just get it a bit smaller. So I wanted to bend this over now. R is for rotate, and T for transform will give you the same sort of plane, what do you call this thing? I'm out of school for so long, I can't remember. Protractor kind of thing. There we go. So then I'll choose the reference of the area at the bottom, choose the actual edge of the draw reference and the direction of the inference, click again, and then I can do the curve. Okay, so the shortcut key for that I use is T. So rotate, I can go rotate a model, and T, it kind of works in that same zone. So if I'm here now, I can click R for rotate, select that, and pull it over, etc. Then T, I can do along that way, and do the bend. Okay, I'm doing some crazy bends now, but that's just to show you the R and T are the two keys. And then a thing that I find very important, I never used to use it that much in SketchUp because you get used to working in the 3D space, but it's your views, your isometric view. Like if you want to get there's two views, if you look here, is parallel projection and perspective. I've made a shortcut key U, so when I press U, it will go to one of the other modes. So if I'm in the mode, here I've got the actual view is the right view. So if I'm in the right view, if I press U, this gives me, let me just get, yeah. So this gives me a perspective view. If I press U again, it gives me the parallel view, parallel projection, which is two-plane. In this way, I can draw using Beziers and keep it in one plane as such. Because if I draw with Bezier curves or any other kind of curves, and I'm in the perspective view, I could be drawing and it could be going back and forward, and I wouldn't know that. So this is quite essential. So if I wanted to bend this now, usually what I'll do is I'll go into the side view. So I'm in the side view, but this is perspective view. Then I use the U key. I've allocated the U key to move it. If you look here, U key will take it to perspective. But you only need to have one key. So if I go U key for perspective, it will take it to perspective. And if I click U again, it will take it to parallel projection. So I go U, and there's parallel projection, U. So I'm flipping only on the U. Initially, I had two keys, one for parallel and one for perspective. But I found out that if you allocate the one to one key, clicking it once and clicking the second time will switch between the two. Okay, that's why I've now reallocated it just to the single keys. Then the O key is for offset. And in this case, you select here and the O will create an offset. Okay, there are other tools that do brilliant offset work, but I with most of the stuff that I use, the normal offset currently serves me very well. So my O is for offset, and I try to use the letters of the alphabet. That makes a bit of sense for me. Then the next one is the P. Now, the P and the J works together for me, and they're relatively close on the keyboard. But the P is for pull-push tool. Okay, so I've got to doubly click to get into this model, and if I press P, it's the original push-pull tool with all its normal features. And I keep the push-pull as my go-to push-pull tool, even though I use the Fredo joint push-pull tools quite a bit for advanced work. I didn't want to change my actual push-pull shortcut key away from the P, so I still keep that as my push-pull tool. And I've made the J, which stands for joint push-pull tool, to be the other one. So the difference here is if I want to pull on any of these surfaces, I have to click. If this is a group, I have to click into it to edit the group to work with push-pull. If I am working with the joint push-pull and I select the entire thing, I can work on the entire model in one go if I push-pull. But because it's a group together, if I do it on the entire thing, all the surfaces will be extruding at the same time. So I still also have to decide whether I want to work on a single surface or on all the surfaces. Whereas your normal push-pull tool can only work on a single surface and a flat surface, not on a curved surface. Okay, let me just show you here. So I go to the J tool. Can you see immediately it is highlighting different surfaces. I'm in the group. It's fully in the group, but I'm able to go to surface. And why am I able to go to individual surfaces? Contrary to what I said earlier now about the fact that it will extrude all the surfaces, that would be the case if I have this face selection on. If I click here, you'll see there all the surfaces are a pink color, and if I pull, everything starts to expand. But I don't have to have that by default. I can choose here that it must be a surface. So if I click surface, when I hover over it, I can, oh, it's still doing that. Okay, so maybe to my point, I was right when I mentioned that. Maybe we can choose a single surface. Let's see what happens. Now it still does it. So I think what I mentioned earlier was correct, that if you're in a group, you're subjecting yourself to extruding all the surfaces at one go. So to get into it, I have to also click into it, same way. So once I'm inside the group, now I can work on different surfaces. So I go to my joint push-pull tool. So if I'm here now, let's see, yeah, I think it works the same. Okay, I was giving you an explanation of it extruding in all directions. Basically, you're going to be in the group and push-pull. The difference here is if I have to go with a normal push-pull tool and I select these these three surfaces and I go normal push-pull, it deselects the others because I can only move one surface at a time. But if I now select these surfaces and I go to joint push-pull and I pull, it will pull all the surfaces that have been selected in this case. Okay, but point that I'm mentioning here is now your joint push-pull tool is allocated to a key, in my case, the J, because I'm in the group at the moment now. That's why I can pull on individual surfaces, but it's the J key. if I press the P key, it goes back to push-pull, and I'm sitting with a dilemma of, again, certain surfaces I can't push. I can't pull this curved surfaces with a push-pull tool. It doesn't allow me to. Okay, so shortcut key P for push-pull. And remember, you've got to go set it yourself. I'm just sharing what I do. It helps me. The J tool is for the joint push-pull tool. And then the G tool, I use allocate the G for, it's by default it's for components, but I make it for group. So I go in and exactly do the same. I'll go to my preferences, go to shortcuts. If I type group over here, this is group and component. Okay, initially this would be a G. What I do is I go make a group. I allocate it to the G because I work with groups more than anything. If I want to make a component, I'll basically right click and say make a component, or in my case I could press C, but I just right click and change that. So R is for rotate, T is for transform, which is the radial bend, U is to get the view sorted, O for offset, P is push-pull, and J is for joint push-pull, and G is for group. Then the last few that I use is the S for size. By default, the S would change to a scale tool. I've made mine by default go to the FredoScale tool. So if I press S for scale, it chooses the Fredo tool. Reason for that is that the Fredo tool has so many more cool features with sizing. It's just quite unique in its way of editing things. So I make my default scale tool the Fredo one. Once you get used to it, you don't want to get out of it because it gives you quite a bit more flexibility with what you're doing. Okay, and then the other thing that I find helpful for me is if I'm busy working on something and an object, and I want to focus in on that object, whatever object I'm on there, I set up the Z tool as my zoom to selection. So if I press Z, it will come right close to this object. So if this guy is positioned, let's put him out over there, and I'm busy over here. If I press Z, it will zoom to him. If I select that and I press Z, it will zoom there. So the Z is zoom to selection, and that helps really a lot when you're working, so that you find yourself going directly to that spot when you need to. Okay, then B is usually the bucket tool, which is the paint tool, which I by default set up for, if I press B, minor setup, and I've done a tutorial on materials and that for Sketchup to Unreal Engine, which you can see in my listing somewhere. When I press the B tool, it goes to the bucket, which I switch to default to the through paint tool, which is part of the Fredo tool set. If I click this F6, everything I'm showing you is free. Not that Fredo means free, but it's actually all of them are free. So the through paint at the bottom is the one that you're seeing here, where you're doing texturing and all sort of high-end texturing features. There's, in this area it says A. I click this A for it to automatically open my bucket tool. So when I want to open the bucket tool, that's where I press the B, and then it will by default open through paint, which is my bucket tool on steroids. And then the last two are ones that everyone should know, but it's the M tool for move, which if I select an object, when I press M, it gives me the move tool. And if I press Control, it will move the object but create a copy of it. So if I go M, it shows me the plus sign, and I can grab and move. And like I said before, if I do that and I want to create more copies, before I click off it, I can go the multiply sign here at the bottom, which says distance in the right corner. It says ×2 and enter. And if I decide now to make more, I can just go ×4. As long as I don't click on the screen. If I click on the screen, it's then sets off there. So that's how you're able to do that. Or what I could do is take that one, press M, Control to create a additional one, move it to an area, and I say that's the start and the end point, and I'll say divided by 3, and we'll put in 3 extra units. Say divided by 5, it will put in 5 extra units, equal distance between the first one and the one that I dragged out. So that's the move tool, the M, that I use. And the other one I probably use the most is my space bar, which is to reset the cursor to the selection tool. So I'll go space bar and I'm back at the tool. And just a run through again. I know I've repeated quite a few things, but I use the R for rotating. So let's go through it. If I press R, it's to rotate an object. Okay. If I press T, that is to do a bend of an object. And that is basically your Fredo tool. If I go U, it's for the perspective or parallel view, and that works in conjunction with these camera views. So if I go in the side view and I press U, that would be a parallel view. I press U again, that will give me the perspective view. Okay, so to appreciate the parallel view, you've got to be in one of the isometric views, the left, right, top, and so forth. And then the parallel projection makes a lot of sense because that's like a 2D visual there. The O is for offset, P is for push-pull tool, and the J is for joint push-pull tool. The G is for making a group. The S is for sizing, and my S is defaulting to the FredoScale for resizing. The Z is to zoom into a selection. The B is for bucket tool or the paint bucket tool. And mine defaults to through paint, which is one of the tools of Fredo tools. And the M is the move, which creates an extra copy with a plus sign. You're able to create duplicates by dragging the first one out and then going the multiply sign, the asterisk thing, and the number of duplicates you want to make. Or if you want to press the plus sign, drag out one to a spot and type divided by a certain number, and it will create copies in between each other. And then to get back to the normal select tool is the space bar. Okay, so I hope that's been of value. That's the things that I do and I use when I work inside SketchUp that helps me to get around and to work quite comfortably. I really would like to encourage you to get all the Fredo tools that there are. There's a few that I haven't covered here. These ones I use regularly, and that's why I thought I'd share it. But the Fredo tools, if you just get hold of them, they're free on the extension store. You could get them through the extension store, even through Sketchification. I've got a plug-in Sketchification which takes me to their store. But get all their tools in, even if you don't understand them clearly. They are brilliant tools to use. It will make your life a real whole much better when you're editing and so forth. So yes, I hope that's been of value and given you a bit more sort of freedom to work more comfortably in SketchUp. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you soon. God bless.